everything you know about this image is a lie. For 40 years, we've stared at this featureless, cyan marble, a world that seemed to have fallen silent in the outer dark. We called it boring. We called it broken. But we didn't realize we were looking at a ghost, a mask created by a cosmic fluke that deceived an entire generation of scientists. Today, that mask is being ripped away. New data from the James Webb Space Telescope and a revolutionary reanalysis of the Voyager archives published in late 2024 have revealed a reality that is far more terrifying and far more exciting. Uranus isn't dead. It is one of the most geologically active, violent, and strategically important worlds in the solar system. Its moons aren't frozen husks. They are hiding liquid oceans that could theoretically support life. And the reason the planet sits on its side isn't because of a simple crash. It was the victim of a gravitational heist, a hit and run by a massive interstellar visitor that reshaped our entire solar system. To understand the future of deep space exploration, we first have to admit that for 40 years, we were looking at a ghost. To understand how we were deceived, we have to go back to January 1986. Voyager 2 was screaming through the outer solar system at 45,000 miles per hour. This was our first and only close encounter with the seventh planet. The images that came back were, frankly, disappointing. While Jupiter was a swirling kaleidoscope of storms and Saturn was a masterclass in ring dynamics, Uranus looked like a smooth, unblemished pane of frosted glass. It was a flat, featureless, teal sphere. But the real mystery wasn't the clouds, it was the invisible world surrounding the planet. When Voyager 2 measured the Uranian magnetosphere, the magnetic bubble that protects a planet from solar radiation, it found something that shouldn't exist. The magnetic field was tilted 59 degrees away from the planet's axis of rotation, and it didn't even pass through the center of the planet. It was off-kilter, wobbling, and most strangely of all, it was empty. In every other giant planet, the magnetosphere is filled with plasma, ionized gas trapped by magnetic lines. But Uranus's magnetosphere was a vacuum. It was missing its plasma. Yet simultaneously, Voyager detected intense radiation belts that were second only to Jupiter's. This created a 40-year paradox. How can you have lethal radiation belts without the plasma that feeds them? For decades, the only answer scientists had was that Uranus was broken. We assumed its internal dynamo was failing, that it was a dying world whose engine had stalled. We built our entire model of ice giant formation on a foundation of weirdness that we couldn't explain. We accepted the anomaly as the baseline. We were like a tourist who visits a beach during a hurricane and concludes that the beach is always underwater. We didn't realize we were looking at a freak occurrence. In November 2024, the illusion finally shattered. A team at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, led by Dr. Jamie Jasinski, decided to look past the flyby data and examine the space weather upstream of the planet in the days leading up to the encounter. What they found was a cosmic coincidence of staggering proportions. Just days before Voyager 2 reached Uranus, the Sun unleashed a massive, high-pressure stream of solar wind. This wasn't a normal breeze. It was a solar gale that increased the dynamic pressure against Uranus's magnetic shield by a factor of 20. This event happens less than 4% of the time. Voyager 2 happened to arrive at the exact moment the solar wind was violently compressing the magnetosphere, squeezing the plasma out of the system and distorting the magnetic lines into the broken shape we saw. If Voyager had arrived just 1 week earlier or 1 week later, the images and data we received would have been unrecognizable. We would have seen a planet with a robust, plasma-rich magnetosphere similar to Saturn or Jupiter. The empty world was a lie created by a 1 in 10,000 weather event. This realization doesn't just change our view of the planet's magnetic field. It changes everything we thought we knew about the moons orbiting it. If the magnetosphere isn't naturally empty, then the moons aren't naturally dead. For 40 years, the absence of plasma was used as evidence that Uranus's moons, Miranda, Ariel, Umbriel, Titania, and Oberon, were geologically inactive. On other planets, moons vent material into space, which then gets ionized and trapped in the magnetic field. Since we saw no plasma, we assumed the moons were frozen solid. But now that we know the solar wind simply blew that evidence away, the hunt for life has been reignited. Using the James Webb Space Telescope, scientists have begun to peer through the infrared spectrum at these distant satellites, and what they found is a revelation. Take Ariel, for example. Recent spectroscopic analysis has detected fresh deposits of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide on its surface. These chemicals shouldn't be there. They break down quickly under radiation. Their presence means they are being actively replenished from the inside. Ariel is breathing, a rhythmic, chemical exhale from a world we once called dead. The data suggests that beneath its frozen skin, a hidden ocean is kept alive by the rhythmic pulse of tidal heating, a gravitational heartbeat shared with its parent planet. But Ariel is not a lonely survivor. Miranda, the smallest and strangest of the major moons, was long thought to be a Frankenstein moon, a world that had been shattered by an impact and clumsily pulled back together by gravity. But a 2024 study suggests a much more dynamic history. Simulations of Miranda's surface features, specifically its massive corona, or grooved structures, indicate that they were formed by rising plumes of warm ice. To create these features, Miranda must have possessed a subsurface ocean at least 100 kilometers deep within the last 100 million years. In geological terms, that is yesterday. There is a very high probability that these oceans still exist today, insulated by thick layers of ice and chemical antifreeze like ammonia. We are no longer looking at 5 dead rocks. We are looking at 5 potential ocean worlds. Uranus isn't a lonely outpost. It is a hidden archipelago of liquid water in the outer dark. Its complexity further underscored by the recent discovery of its 28th and 29th moons in 2024 and 2025. The stakes of exploring this system have just shifted from purely scientific curiosity to the search for extraterrestrial life. But as we zoom out from the moons to the planet itself, the mysteries only get larger. The most famous fact about Uranus is its axial tilt. While every other planet in the solar system spins like a top, Uranus rolls like a bowling ball, tilted 98 degrees on its side. The standard explanation found in every textbook is that a protoplanet the size of Earth slammed into Uranus billions of years ago, knocking it over. It's a clean, violent story, but it's likely wrong. New orbital dynamics models suggest that a single impact wouldn't produce the system we see today. If a giant impact had knocked Uranus over, its moons would have been left orbiting in their original plane, leaving them at a sharp angle to the planet's new equator. Instead, the moons are perfectly aligned with the planet's sideways tilt. This suggests that the tilt didn't happen in a sudden crash. It happened slowly, over millions of years, as if something was dragging the planet's pole toward the horizon. This brings us to the interstellar visitor hypothesis. For a long time, we thought our solar system was a closed loop, a clockwork mechanism where everything that happened was caused by the players we see today, the Sun and the 8 planets. But we now know that the early solar system was a much more porous place. Recent research into rogue planets, worlds that have been ejected from their parent stars and drift through the galaxy, suggests that these dark wanderers are more common than stars themselves. A groundbreaking model proposes that billions of years ago, a massive interstellar visitor, a rogue planet weighing between 2 and 50 times the mass of Jupiter, passed through our solar system. It didn't have to hit anything to cause devastation. Its gravity was a scalpel. As this visitor moved through the outer reaches, it performed a gravitational heist. It tugged on the gas giants, throwing their orbits into the eccentric shapes we see today. But its most profound effect was on Uranus. The visitor's passage likely destabilized an ancient, massive moon that once orbited Uranus. This moon was pulled into a migratory death spiral. As it moved closer to the planet, its gravitational pull acted like a tether, slowly torquing the entire Uranian system, pulling the planet onto its side over millions of years before the moon finally crashed into the planet or was flung into the sun. This migrating moon theory, triggered by an interstellar interloper, explains why the moons remained aligned with the equator. They weren't knocked out of place. They were moved along with the planet. This realization changes our place in the galaxy. We are not an isolated island. The very shape of our solar system, the reason Uranus spins sideways, the reason Neptune is where it is, and the reason the Kuiper Belt is so sparse, is the result of an ancient encounter with a traveler from another star system. Uranus is the smoking gun of this interstellar hit and run. It is a world that bears the scars of a cosmic encounter we are only just beginning to map. And this history is written in the very chemistry of the planet. When we look at the clouds of Uranus using the James Webb Space Telescope, we see clues that point to this violent past. We've identified hydrogen sulfide, the molecule that gives rotten eggs their smell, in the upper cloud decks. This is a crucial distinction. Jupiter and Saturn are dominated by ammonia. The presence of hydrogen sulfide tells us that Uranus formed much further out in the cold, dark reaches of the solar nebula, in a region where sulfur could freeze. It is a pristine relic of the early solar system, a chemical time capsule that has been preserved for 4 billion years. Deep beneath these clouds, the extreme pressure may even be forging a legendary phenomenon: diamond rain, where carbon atoms are crushed into precious stones that sink toward the core like glittering hail. But the most haunting realization is that the calm Uranus we thought we knew is actually a world of extreme, seasonal violence. Because the planet is on its side, its poles experience 42 years of continuous sunlight, followed by 42 years of total darkness. As the planet moves through its 84-year orbit, the transition between these seasons triggers atmospheric events that dwarf anything on Earth. JWST has recently captured images of a massive, glowing polar cap at the North Pole, surrounded by intense cyclonic storms. These aren't the static features of a dead world. These are the symptoms of a planet with a massive internal heat source that we still don't fully understand. For years, we thought Uranus was the only giant planet that didn't radiate more heat than it received from the sun. We thought its core was cold, but the new data suggests we were simply looking at the wrong time. Uranus is a seasonal giant. It stores energy and then releases it in violent decadal bursts. We are currently approaching the Uranian Equinox in 2028, and the planet is beginning to wake up. The featureless blue ball of 1986 is transforming into a world of dark latitudinal lanes, bright methane clouds, and storms the size of continents. The implications of this paradigm shift are profound. If Uranus has active ocean moons, it becomes a primary target for the search for life. If its magnetosphere is dynamic and plasma-rich, it becomes a laboratory for understanding how planets interact with their stars. And if its tilt was caused by an interstellar visitor, it becomes a bridge to understanding the history of our entire galaxy. We are currently in a race to return. NASA has prioritized a Uranus orbiter and probe mission as the highest priority for the next decade of space exploration. This mission won't just be a flyby, it will stay. It will drop a probe into those hydrogen sulfide clouds and orbit those hidden ocean moons for years. We are going back to see the planet without the mask. Consider the moon Miranda one more time. It is a tiny world, only about 500 kilometers in diameter, yet it has cliffs, the Verona Rupas, that are 20 kilometers high. If you jumped off the top, it would take you 12 minutes to hit the bottom. This level of extreme topography on such a small world is a testament to the violent forces at play in the Uranian system. It is a world that has been broken, remolded, heated, and frozen again and again. It is a microcosm of the entire system, a place that looks quiet and shattered from a distance, but up close is a theater of geological power. The discovery of a potential 100-kilometer deep ocean on Miranda is perhaps the most shocking find of the last year. Water is the universal solvent of life. If Miranda has water, and Ariel has water, and Titania has water, then the habitable zone of our solar system doesn't end at Mars. It doesn't even end at Jupiter's Europa or Saturn's Enceladus. It extends all the way to the edge of the interstellar void. This is the new map of our solar system. It is no longer a collection of 8 isolated planets. It is a dynamic, interconnected system that has been shaped by the stars around it. Uranus, the planet we dismissed as an ice giant anomaly, is actually the key to it all. It is the bridge between our Sun and the rest of the Milky Way. It is a world that was sculpted by a rogue planet from another star, a world that hid its true nature from us for 40 years, and a world that may be teeming with life in the dark. The 1986 image of a featureless blue ball wasn't a failure of our technology. It was a challenge from the universe, a prompt to question our assumptions and realize that in science, the quietest objects often hide the most explosive secrets. As we prepare to send our next generation of explorers into the outer dark, we do so with a new understanding. We are no longer looking for a broken world, but a living system. We are looking for the survivors of an interstellar encounter and for ourselves in the reflection of those hidden, icy oceans. The story of Uranus is no longer a story of what went wrong. It is a narrative of untapped potential. The mask of the featureless planet is gone, replaced by a world of storms, oceans, and interstellar history, waiting for us to finally see it for what it truly is. The mystery of the 7th planet isn't that it's weird, it's that we ever thought it was simple. Every new piece of data, every infrared glow from the James Webb, every recalculated orbital path tells us the same thing. We are just beginning to understand the true scale of the neighborhood we live in. The interstellar visitors of the past have left their mark, and the ocean worlds of the future are waiting for their first visitors from Earth. The voyage is just beginning.